and welcome to the ECIST podcast series. My name is Pete Gordon, Head of Emergency Care Improvement with ECIST, and I'm delighted today to be in the company of Glen Burley. Glen, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Glen Burley, Chief Executive of what we call the Foundation Group, which is a group of trusts: South Warwickshire Foundation Trust, George Eliot Trust and Wye Valley Trust.
Brilliant, thanks Glen. And we're going to have a conversation around an experienced Chief Executive's view around how do you keep managing urgent and emergency care. So I've got a couple of questions, Glen, and here's the first one. First one is, how do you manage the competing priorities, including urgent emergency care and elective care and all the other stuff you have to deal with as a busy Chief Executive?
Well, it's a tricky ask, particularly at the moment with the management of such a long-term national major incident. But I've always believed in getting the balance right, the balance between kind of operational and strategic, between today and tomorrow, and between urgent and elective. And actually what we've been doing in all three trusts is trying to absolutely get urgent care right, because if you don't get urgent care right, then you don't have the access, the capacity to do elective care. So really focusing on urgent care. It's obviously important to patients, but it's really important to have the patients in the right part of the system, the right teams looking after them, and therefore you have to manage your capacity in the same way that you manage your workload. Yeah,
brilliant. Thanks, Glen. And what are your top tips for leaders, whether they're operational or clinical leaders, who are trying to improve urgent emergency care? I mean, you've done some great work, you and your teams, over the years. What are your top tips?
Well, I probably have three top tips. One would be the clinical engagement and listening to the clinicians, those who are experiencing the system, running the system. So that their involvement, their empowerment is really quite important. Sometimes that you have a suboptimal solution, but if it's theirs and they own it, then they're going to get their weight behind it and make it happen. So that will be one part of it. The other two would then be culture and data. So I think culture is so important right across the NHS, but in terms of urgent care, that permissive approach that says it's okay to try something, it's okay for it to sometimes not work. As long as we learn from it, you learn more from your mistakes than you do from your successes. And then the other one is the use of data and measurement, and actually a lot of what we've been able to do with improvement positively in my three trusts is encouraging access to data, use of data, for the proper use of data. We so often over the years have used averages and messed things up as a consequence of that. So looking at time series data, looking at upper and lower quartiles of ranges, and actually making sure you get the capacity right for the variation that we experience. So some of those good old techniques of service improvement, actually. So teaching clinicians some of the skills of service improvement brings some really great rewards. So those would be my three.
Brilliant, thanks, Glen. And final question is, how do you, I mean, everyone's busy operationally, but how do you get the balance between, trying to maintain an improvement culture, that culture of continuous improvement, while keeping the daily operational functioning of your three trusts, going?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's so important for us all to not get consumed in the here and now, and that what I sometimes say is that someone has to up periscope from the kind of deep water that we're in at the moment and try and see where we're heading to. And I think that's how we can take people with us, by being clear about what the destination is, but always taking stock of the progress that we're making against it. So even in the kind of deepest, darkest winter pressures, and the pressure that we've had this winter obviously has been more significant than any other, it's that ability to see that there's still an end game that we're moving towards, and that we're still making progress towards it, even if today's progress is minimal. It's that kind of minimum progress but maximum benefit in the long run approach. So I try and ensure that in every day, in every project, you've got some forward look opportunities rather than just being consumed by the here and now. and that's a discipline that I try and keep in all of my teams, but also all of our boards. So over the past few months, as well as obviously looking at COVID and the numbers, we've continued to try and look at where we're trying to go to with integration and service improvement. We have improvement boards in all three of the trust, where we've got clinicians and managers whose focus is on that. And improvement is everyone's job, but it's also important to have one or two, as I call them, black belts in improvement around that can add those extra skills and call us to heal occasionally on it. But yeah, trying to get improvement in everyone's job, trying to get people to focus on a destination. And indeed, even now, I think over the past few weeks, people have talked about the fact that we're looking at a new white paper for the NHS. And I think some people have suggested that, how can we look at that whilst we've got the busyness of COVID? But that's what keeps us sane. That familiar destination of getting really integrated services is something that, and even through COVID, we've been able to accelerate that. If you look at the way systems are working together. If you look at urgent care over the years, it originally started as something that was just about a hospital. People just looked at, is it a front door or a back door problem? And I've always said it's an every door problem. It's an every door system, every door problem across the system. So system work has improved on the back of COVID. So why wouldn't we be accelerating our progress on integration into the future? So always trying to look ahead, because that's what keeps us sane.
I said that was my final question, but I'm going to ask one more question. So I know, really aware of some of the great work that you and your teams have done in terms of system collaboration. Just a couple of top tips. So there's a big push on things like discharge to assess and urgent community response. And you're right, it's everybody's, it's everybody's issue. So any top tips about how you really get that system-wide collaboration?
System working is really hard. The hard yards you make in trust and partnership working pay dividends in the end. And I say, actually, some of the impact of COVID has been to bring us together with a kind of single uniting purpose. So that's probably one of the things that I would try and get people to concentrate on. What's that? What are those uniting purposes that we have in our places, in our systems that keep us focused? And then, whether you're talking to primary care or local authority colleagues or third sector colleagues, if we can see that we've got a single uniting purpose, or even several of them, then those are the things that we can concentrate on. But it is also, for me, about ensuring that you understand that you don't know it all. So often in the NHS, we think it's all about, urgent care is all about us. But actually there's expertise in all parts of the system, and calling on those expertise and letting people lead, particularly in systems, is so important. So we're aiming to be the lead provider in each of the systems that we operate in, but that doesn't mean we're going to be the sole provider. We recognise that we know certain things, but actually we also know that primary care know a lot more than we do about lots of things. Local authority colleagues know a lot more. So the success of things like discharge to assess models have been building on the expertise in other parts of the system, in other partners, and not doing it all ourselves.
Brilliant. Well, Glenn, thanks ever so much for speaking to us, and it's always a pleasure to hear your wise words. Thank you very much.
Great to see you again, Pete. Thank you. Thanks.